Welcome to Peacebuilding Initiatives, where we explore the transformative power of dialogue, cross-cultural understanding, and collective empathy in building more peaceful and connected communities. I'm your host, José Barzola. Thank you for joining us today. On today's episode, we're focusing on the importance of mental health and the role it plays in shaping our well-being, relationships, and communities. Our guest, again, is Aspen Newman, who's a 20-year-old from Boise, Idaho. In this conversation, we'll explore why mental health matters for everyone, what it means to actively protect it, and practice ways to prioritize well-being in the midst of everyday demands. Aspen, thanks so much for being here again. I
Yeah,
appreciate
of
it, your
course.
time.
Absolutely.
So to get us started on a personal context kind
Mhm.
of shape, focusing on that, when did you think about mental health? I know it's something that I hear more definitely nowadays than maybe
Yeah.
like a decade ago. Um, but what does that term mean to you personally?
Yeah, it means a lot. I kind of feel like I grew up in the generation where it started becoming a huge topic. So I feel like my generation is a little bit more like aware of it and, some of the consequences and how severe it is. But um, I grew up in a family that it really prioritized mental health and spoke about it highly. And if you needed a break on school or things like that, they were very supportive. So, yeah, mental health is super important to me, especially, as it just it goes into any aspect of your life.
Thank you. Um, Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You talked about, the generation that kind of grew up with it,
Yeah.
and I guess, as much as people may sometimes I hear folks talk about like the internet or just the accessibility of information and or social media as a deterrent and some of the negatives. What I'm also hearing is all that information maybe made it more accessible to be able to learn and hear other people's voices because
Yeah.
before as I recall, it was if you were going to get information about someone talking about mental health, it was like you pick up
Yeah.
a book that was published, a newspaper that something was published there, or something that made it on TV.
Mhm.
But then I think about like the layers of approval for something to get to that point.
Yeah. I
You
yeah, I
know,
agree. I think just yeah, with social media, I think it's a great outlet for certain people, and it does a lot of. I think just like anything, there has to be boundaries with it, and I think what's important is. I think people have started to shed light on, not everyone on social media necessarily has the some of the qualifications to speak like
yeah.
factual things about certain mental health things, but it's great that people can, share their stories. And I think it's wonderful people can relate to things and know that some people are going through similar things.
And that's exactly it. I mean, even though people may not have the credentials to speak about a topic, they
Yeah.
have the life experience, which is it's like a whole nother layer, a whole new perspective that has come about with this digital age. The good, the bad, the ugly. I think, like you said, with everything else, there has to be a balance. So thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Um, could you share a moment or experience that ideally maybe shaped how you understand the importance of mental health?
Yeah, I think probably like I've lost, family members and older relatives and stuff. So I think grief is something that kind of intertwines with mental health. But I've along with you know a lot of people have had struggles with like depression, anxiety, and things like being an athlete and putting like I think some of my own mental health things can come from like self-induced pressure almost. So just learning, how to balance that and going easy on yourself, things like that. So yeah, I've definitely had a lot of experiences with it, and I had family members who've had experience with it. So I think it's just really individual. That's what I've really learned the past like couple years as I grow older. It's super individual to everyone.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out because I think too many times do we are we looking for that cookie cutter response, the band-aid that will fix everybody, and time again we keep reminding others and ourselves that we have to take an individual approach. Like just because this remedy or pathway may have assisted your friend doesn't mean it's going to help you out
Yeah,
specifically.
of
So
course.
How has your perspective on mental health evolved over time, would you say?
Yeah. I think just when I was younger, I was like when I was in elementary school and in middle school, even in early high school, just kind of naive to um, some of the effects that mental health, people talked about it, but I think until you maybe experience something or have a family member experience a serious like kind of mental health issue or crisis, you don't understand how severe it can be. And um, yeah, my I think my perspective has just I've put more of an emphasis on it as I've gotten older, how serious it can be, and you should protect it, like more of a preventative outlook.
No, thank you. And I think that's a good reminder of like what's more the constant of how can we kind of take a step back and try to be
Mhm.
proactive as opposed to reactive, which is so common in
Yeah,
our everyday, unfortunately.
yeah,
Um, so in your were there specific tools that maybe helped you become more aware of your own mental health well-being? Like, were there resources at school, or was it social media, or was it like going to the library? Yeah, just
yeah.
wondering what resources are out there.
I think for me personally, I didn't I had a phone when I was in high school, but I wasn't like huge on social media. But um, I think being on like I played softball growing up, and being on a sports team with like some of my personal mental health stuff came from like burnout of sport and just exhausted from the merry-go-round of sport, school, work, all these things. So being able to just relate to my teammates, I think personally for me and what a lot of sometimes people lack is human connection and relationships and how just speaking to someone else who's going through a similar thing or maybe even not just having them listen so I would yeah some of the tools for me are like sometimes it's speaking to someone and talking or sometimes it's just like taking a moment for myself like just being outside helps me a lot too just finding mostly like being off my phone if I need to clear my head.
Thank you. Why do you think mental health sometimes is overlooked or misunderstood, especially like among young people?
Yeah, I think I think some people maybe grow up with households that don't maybe take it seriously or don't understand, yeah, the severity that it can take people to in the dark places that it can hold on people. I think it's just one of those things that you're not really aware of what it can do until you're in the midst of it, which is it's kind of sad, but sometimes you just don't know until you're walking through it or you have someone walk through it.
And, what would you say are some common misconceptions about mental health that you've encountered?
Yeah, I would just say like it's different for everybody. Some people go through waves of it, some people have it all the time. I guess people there's a lot of stereotypes around men and mental health and all the gender stereotypes that come with that. And I grew up my dad is very he has three daughters, so he's a pretty, vulnerable emotional guy. And so I grew up once again like that was normal to me, but when I get older that's not true for a lot of men. They don't feel like they necessarily have those resources or stuff. So that I feel like can be kind of a misconception that men maybe don't feel those things.
Thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, there are all these social pressures, the way we perceive that men or women should act, and sometimes it's not even um, it's so deeply rooted in our society, in our communities, in our cultures that unless we like analyze why are we doing something, or why is this being done this way, do we actually notice that there's like it's almost like unspoken sometimes, unfortunately. And yeah, and it's I think sometimes part of that modeling what we see growing up. So I'm glad that your dad was there to kind of.
Yeah, I think a lot of like anything it can be a huge like your environment, it can be a huge factor into how you perceive a lot of those things. And which is really it's just like that's an interesting thing for me, and that has to do with anything, not just mental health, religion, gender stereotypes, all of it. But yeah, everybody just grew up differently, which is great.
Yeah, thank you. um So I wonder if you have any tips or how can we begin to normalize conversations around mental health in everyday life?
Yeah, I would just say I think that is one of the things that social media is really powerful for. I'm not a huge social media like advocate, but I think it can be really great for some people who maybe don't want to talk to someone necessarily close to them, but you can go and find videos of people who have stories of their struggles and really low times and bounce ideas of how they were able to pull through it or what they did. But yeah, I just think the more we talk about these things, the more comfortable people can get and just having safe spaces for everyone to say, I'm struggling, I need help.
Oh, thank you. Um, you talked a little bit about this, my questions, my follow-up is a little bit around like what roles do families, schools, and communities play? You talked a little bit about, your father and your family.
Mhm.
I wonder if you can share a little bit about, what role have you seen your school or your community in general play to create either awareness or support systems, resources? Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
I went to like a smaller, Boise small, but I went to a private school. And so I had counselors, and you had them, it was small. So they had small chunks of students, so you could really have one-on-one conversations with them if you needed those resources. It wasn't as advocated as it was in high school. I feel like UH does a pretty good job. They're always sending out emails of all the resources that they provide for people, and um, all the sports team I've played on or coaches I've had are really respectful of mental health, and they often I had my softball coaches were always kind of asking the girls how things were going, and that's not really the case for everybody, with sometimes even coaches, but I always grew up and I always felt really safe to kind of have those conversations.
Well, thank you. I think one thing that kind of comes to mind to me would be uh, what I'm hearing is surrounding yourself or being around communities or groups, schools or coaches, right? That uh, support, support, provide the assistance, provide those open doors to be able to have those conversations is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
And simultaneously, if someone who's listening doesn't see that around them, then maybe that's a clear sign that, well, maybe we need to reevaluate uh,
yeah,
those that are around us, and if it's really in the best interests of our own mental health.
yeah, for
So
sure. Those are hard conversations too, like that follow-up question.
yeah, um, and I don't know if you've had that experience and any tips or guidance on how to have these difficult conversations.
Yeah, not so much. I mean, I feel like my side of struggles with it can be I can be stubborn, so I'm not that great at talking about my feelings as other people are. Even though I have the great resources that I know would always support me, but I just kind of tend to brush it off and kind of wait for that reactive stuff to set in. But I just think like, yeah, maybe if you don't want, like, I think like if you don't necessarily want to have a conversation, like text someone or, sometimes I find texting can just be easier and it's not as scary maybe to have those conversations because you never know how those people are going to react or whatnot. And everyone my parents are great. They would never like be upset at me for any of those things. So, but still it can be scary. It's a scary feeling.
Oh, thank you. What would you say as far as like daily practices and being self-aware? What are some practices or habits that help you maintain your mental health?
Yeah, and for me, it's um, like most of the time, it's my workouts. Just finding space to. And most of the time, that I do is I don't like I'll have my phone, for safety stuff, but I don't you do music most of the time, and that just really helps me be in my thoughts and clear my head, especially like when I'm running. Um, but yeah, I would say
Did you say you do or don't do music?
yeah, no music. Mm-mm.
Do you have your
Um,
earphones just to block the noise out?
No, I just have, yeah, no, I just run. It's usually
Okay.
when I'm running, and biking, I guess. But yeah, if I'm having a really bad day, I'll have headphones. But
Yeah.
yeah, like personally for me, that's how I just, put the phone down and just, spend time with myself. I think
Yeah.
when you're always doing stuff, it's hard to just kind
Yeah.
of focus on you and be in tune with your body.
No, thank you. I only bring it up because most wireless headphones, as people tend to have them, or if you have headphones, they tend to be noise canceling as well.
Yes.
And if, especially if you go to a gym where there's lots of people, sometimes people want to talk. So a good strategy, just even if you're not listening to music, just putting on the headphones, people might think
No, I
like,
have
oh,
done that. Yes, I've definitely done that in the gym for sure. Yeah.
yeah,
And if they sometimes if I go to the gym, I usually have headphones on. If they die, I just don't take them out.
yeah.
Because it is nice. I know that the second generation of AirPods, the Beats are really nice too. They have all that noise canceling stuff. It's just great.
Yeah, or just I have found it refreshing, just even just walking or jogging through like construction
Mhm.
site or anywhere that there's a lot of noise, like
Yeah.
just having that noise canceling is just a little bit of serenity
Yeah.
in the midst of everything. So um how do you recognize when you would say like your mental health needs attention?
I think some of it, like personally for me, would come from my motivation or my energy levels. I have a big engine, so I can do a lot of things throughout the day usually. But when I tend to, I used to push myself through all of that and make myself do it, and then I'd be burnt out for a week. I don't want to do anything. I just want to chill out. But so like if I start to kind of feel it, like one day, I really push back. Like the next day, I'll kind of clear my schedule and just give my body the time to reset.
No, thank you. Uh, I know that many, you know, shifting a little to, we talked about balance earlier,
Mhm.
and with that, part of that balance is to assist with the pressure, the stress of just all the things that we're all
Yeah.
juggling in life. So how many people juggle, school, work, personal responsibilities, such as you do? So how do you manage those stress in those moments?
Um, how do I manage it? I don't know. I think I've like have learned over the past couple of years that just focusing on the task at hand, being in the present is kind of challenging for me, but I if I can do it, it really helps me just break, like if I'm at school, just trying to focus on school. If I'm at a workout, I'm trying to focus on the workout, not something that's coming 10 years down the road. So I feel like being present can, where they always tell you be where your feet are.
You were your feet are. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah.
What would it look like for you to ask for help, and what can that sometimes, and why can't that sometimes be challenging? I would ask, like, you talked about
Yeah.
not being very emotional, and
Yeah.
so is it more just like, here are the facts, like I need help, or like, yeah, just wondering.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have a great, I would say 1,000 times, a great relationship with my family. I have two sisters and an older brother. So, um, I think for me, I don't know. Sometimes those conversations, just no matter how close I am with someone, it seems scary. Um, um, so I think like I would maybe, kind of send a text or something, but the older I've gotten, I live very far from my family. So the older I've gotten, it doesn't scare me as much because it's still a phone call. I'm not face to face, but yeah, I still think I'm working through those in-person conversations because yeah, and I'm still working through why it seems, so scary, but I'm sure a lot of people kind of are in the same boat. But yeah, I guess what like asking, yeah, I'm pretty straight up. Yeah, if I need help or I need space, I need something, I'm just honest. I've just realized that's kind of the best way. There's no point in dancing around it. Just get straight to the point because yeah, I
Okay.
don't see the point.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, Simultaneously, how would you suggest can we be better support friends, or to be better support to friends, loved ones who may be struggling?
Yeah, I think sometimes people check in on people like that their whole lives, like if one friend you've had your whole life that's always kind of been struggling with depression and things that you've kind of noticed for a long time, and those have been outspoken and it's been talked about. But I also think supporting the people that always seem kind of happy and are always happy-go-lucky, because I think also those people are also struggling with their own things, and those kind of are some of the people that don't talk about it as much. And everyone needs the same amount of support and love, but I think checking in with everybody, because also I've grown up, it's truly crazy that you never know what anyone is going through. And everyone you meet is probably going through something. So just being, kind, even if someone does something to you, like you just never know.
You're right. Thank you.
Yeah. It's hard
That
sometimes though. Someone cuts you off. It's
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
no. Our own emotions might blind us to what others are going through, and it's not as though everyone needs to know exactly everything that everyone's going through. But I think I like that tidbit of most likely we are all struggling with something. So just it's good reminder to just be kind,
yeah.
uh, give some grace, give some patience for folks, and
Yeah.
hopefully simultaneously they can do the same with you.
Yeah,
Be
you hope
reciprocal.
you receive what you put out
Yeah,
there.
yeah. What would you say are some barriers that prevent people from prioritizing their mental health?
Somewhat.
Some barriers
Oh, okay.
that prevent people.
Yeah, I would say resources, not, I think a massive thing is just having a community around you, finding people that support you. And it doesn't have to be family, it can be friends, it can be a church, sports, people in your classes, someone that you can you need to have people around you that you feel loved by and supported by, that you can talk to, even if it's the internet, something. Um, but yeah, I think there is still a lot of stigma around mental health, as much as it's really improved and the conversations are starting to happen. There's a lot of different mental health challenges. Um, but I would say resources, some of the severe mental health challenges require doctors and medicine and things like that. So, some houseless people might not have those resources.
Okay. Any guidance on how you might work through moments of self-doubt or internal struggle?
Yeah, I think just um, I'll remind yourself of something. I always like will pick a moment and reflect something hard I've done or something I completed. I always like, if I'm struggling, like remind myself like, hey, you've done these things, you've done that, you've done this 1,000 times. It's just feeling hard, but at the same time, giving yourself grace that maybe sometimes you need to pivot if it's too much for you, for your body. I think that's the biggest thing is, I've learned both as an athlete and as a human with mental health stuff is that you have to listen to your body first, and your body, your mind's always going to give you signs. And so I think being in tune with yourself is amazing, and however you can figure that out, because no one knows you better than you know yourself.
It's also reminds me of, I always have to let people know, and even remind myself that, we are our own worst critic.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. No one
be
sees it as
kind,
we do.
right. So, no one's going to be harsher than you are to yourself. So kind of be kind to yourself
Yeah,
first. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It's crazy.
Thank you. Um, People kind of throw out this word like resilience, and I wonder what you may have learned about resilience through your own experiences.
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer in like one door closing or something not working. I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason, especially the older I get. So like kind of the idea that if one door closes, another one's going to open, and it might not be the next day or the same day. It might be years. So yeah, I kind of live by that, and it can be kind of hard to wrap your head around, but then you have something that happens and you're like, oh my gosh, if I would have taken that or done this, it wouldn't lead me to where I am today. So I would say that's kind of resilience. I think positive self-talk. I think I always look at things like this as like a brick wall that you're building, and each little tool you can stack is each little brick. And you have to build that wall. So just figuring out what tools are best for you, what works for me doesn't work for my sisters or my parents. So it's so individual. It can be
Yeah.
kind of hard to have all the conversations.
Thank you. Um, and a big portion of this podcast is like the peace building
Hmm.
conversation, or the as I mentioned at the introduction, empathy. And
Mhm.
What role do you see empathy playing in mental health?
Oh yeah, I mean it's huge. You have to you have to give everyone empathy. I think that's the same thing like being kind and giving patience to people because you don't know what they're going through. Being empathetic to people that like something that comes to mind is like people maybe you see on the street that their houses are struggling with mental health and substance abuse issues. So being empathetic to their stories, just because you never know anyone's stories, and maybe they had decisions that put them in those situations, but maybe they didn't. So um, I don't know. It just seems like sometimes people don't have as much empathy for people as you should because I think everyone's going through something, even if it's really small, it might mean something to them.
You shared about how people don't have empathy. Do you think it's because of people's own struggle? Just
Yeah, I think
I always kind of wonder.
Yeah, I think maybe some people might think like, it can feel sometimes like the weight on your shoulders is 10 times more than the what anyone else could possibly be going through. But put yourself in someone else's shoes that even though to you it might not seem that serious, it clearly is to someone else. I always think like that's why we have two ears and one mouth, so we can listen a lot more than we speak. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's like our world is so fast paced now that how often do we slow down and have empathy for people's situations or, things that we see. But I also see an extreme amount of kindness on the internet. And so it's also kind of how you look at it.
Thank you. I could definitely see how prioritizing mental health, empathy embedded deeply within that can contribute to uh, reducing conflict in relationships, creating more peaceful or connected societies.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and one question's like, how can individuals create positive ripple effects? We talked about the kindness, the empathy. Just wonder if you have uh, other ideas or things that have worked for you that you would want to
Yeah, like
share.
the ripple effect. I
Yeah.
don't know. I always think is, something that I should do more. I think about doing more often. I should do more often is that the best thing ever, like if you've ever gone through a drive-through and someone's like paid for so the head person ahead of you is like paid for your meal, like really simple things like that, I think can change someone's like whole day, whole perspective on a horrible day. Or like I
Yeah.
always think like every time I'm running, I always say morning, like hi, just like really small things, maybe someone doesn't really get like talked to as much as they would like, or they're lonely. So I just it doesn't have to be like these massive big grand gestures, like really small things, like say hi to someone, ask someone how they're doing, or get to know someone, ask them their name, like those human connections. Just like we say, I think having empathy um, is a great peace building strategy.
Thank you. What would you say are some simple, practical steps people can take to start prioritizing their mental health nowadays?
Um, yeah, I would say like spending time with yourself and understanding, asking maybe yourself some like finding questions on the internet that like you can just start to learn more about yourself, like what makes me feel more energy, what makes me feel at peace. Like for me, like being at peace is outside and in nature and working out and running. But for my brother, it's like he likes computer stuff and video games and all those things. So it's just what you like to do. But I would say, yeah, spend time with yourself, start to learn more about yourself. And I think it can sometimes be selfish to prioritize yourself, but you have to in order to take care of your village. If you need a village, you also have to be the village for someone else, but you can't do that if you can't lift yourself up. They say you have to love yourself before you love anyone else.
Yeah, very true. Thank you.
It's a lot harder.
Um,
It's a lot easier said than done, though, for sure.
yes, yes, yes. It's always I find it what is it, like Home Goods, like one of those stores where you
Yeah,
start seeing the
all the
quotes on
signs.
like the
Yeah,
signs, and you're like thinking, should I get this?
I
Would
know.
this
Yeah,
be a
should I
good
put it in my
reminder to
journal?
just kind
Yeah.
of let me know? Like,
Yeah, that's
um,
why also like that's I feel like one of the can be the dangers of social media is like the comparison and like, oh, these people's lives, they look so good, but most
Mm,
people on social media are posting the best parts of their life. So like you have to understand that that's not their life day to day. That's where like I think some of the dangers could come in. So like having that boundary with social media is also like super important to protect your mental health, because I've fallen into the comparison thing like I want to be like that, look like that, do things like that, have money like that.
yeah. No, thank you. What's one thing you wish more people understood about mental health?
Mm, I just feel like I think it can be really serious, and I think a lot more people struggle with it than we know. So yeah, be nice, and I don't know. I mean, yeah, I just maybe get educated on if you have a family member struggling with it, to be educated on it and how you can help them. I think it's also really important to not just because it can be really hard to support someone going through that, and you don't necessarily have the tools or know what to do.
Thank you. I will say, in my experience, many times you don't need to. You said at the end, like, know what to do. Um, you don't need to exactly know what to do, but I think going back to like empathy, just offering to listen to someone if they want to talk, not, they don't have to be forced to. But I just feel like sometimes people don't know that that's a possibility. And sometimes, unfortunately, due, whatever the level of mental health may be,
Mhm.
sometimes they may not even be hearing you say that. And so, but I think that consistency of being available, it can go a long way.
Yeah, I think also like I have some friends that like I know that they like stated that they're going through something, but they're not necessarily people that want to talk about it and have these conversations about it, but just like texting and being like, "Hey, no need to respond, but I'm thinking about you." Like little things like that. And sometimes that even is helpful to me is like I don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty. I want to work through it kind of on myself, but just that like someone's thinking about you, that's so nice.
Yeah, yeah, no, most definitely.
Yeah.
I started thinking about like within the space of social media, there are little things that whether it's something that brought you laughter or there's some humor, some real, you share it with friends,
Yeah.
and so it's it is so fascinating, the dynamic of like not having to be in the same room and like watch something or share a joke together, but it's this like passive way of like, hey, like
Yeah.
maybe you're busy, but when you're available, it's in your
Yeah.
DMs.
Yeah, I'm thinking
I
about
sent you
you. I'm
like a
like,
funny video. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, little
yeah,
things like that's crazy. It can, yeah. It's so nice, yeah, just to get a text like, oh, my friends I grew up with high school are all over the country and, just texting like, hey, how are you? I hope you're doing good. Like takes 5 seconds.
yes, yes. Or I know Facebook does like the birthday thing,
Yes.
and they even like all you literally have to do is click a couple buttons. You don't even have to type. It's
Yeah,
already
exactly. It's
pre-typed,
automated.
like the message, like which
Yeah.
message do you want to choose. But the fact that you just took a couple seconds
Hmm.
um, is more than like if you hadn't,
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so yeah, little acts of kindness, I guess. That's really kind of what it goes back to. Um, so looking ahead, how do you hope to continue growing your own mental health journey?
Yeah, I think to never stop growing and these next couple years probably as I transition out of college and stuff and are going to be years of probably maybe more high stress and kind of figure things out. So, I'm kind of giving myself grace and just understand leaning into the my belief of everything happens for a reason. And I have a weird faith. I've always had a weird trust that, things are going to work out. So I not really as anxious as some people like my family members can get really anxious, but I just don't worry about things that I think I would just say don't worry about things that aren't in your control. Some things aren't in your control, and that's just it.
Thank you. Um, if as we come to a close to wrap today's conversation up, I wonder if you have any words you want to share with our listeners, any message about caring for mental health and what it would be. I know you shared some really wonderful, tips as far as like, it's an individualized approach, just being available to people, the kindness, the empathy.
Mhm.
Yeah, just wondering if you have any final words, I guess.
Yeah, I think just, if you're struggling to speak up, and there's multiple ways to speak up, it doesn't have to be a traditional way. There's a lot of different ways to do it and whatever feels safe to you. And I always just encourage people to, surround themselves with people that you feel loved by and you feel supported by. And that also can be that can be a hard conversation, and that can arise with mental health challenges, is maybe realizing you're not surrounding yourself with the correct people, and that can itself be a lot of challenges. But just, yeah, be nice to yourself. Life is hard. It's also easier said than done, so it's always a work in progress, and some people make it look really easy, but it's hard.
Well, thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
your insights and experiences with us today. Conversation's definitely a meaningful reminder
Yeah.
that mental health is not something we address once or move on from. It's an ongoing practice of awareness, care, and intentionality. I think, going back to that word, the balance, making sure
Mhm.
you're getting enough sleep, making sure you're eating healthy, you're exercising, like you're nourishing all parts of your body, also like reading a good book. Like
Yeah.
um, but not to be overwhelmed with like
Yeah, have the
like
balance.
there's a long list of things I need to do now on top
Yeah.
of like everything else. But how can we weave things into our everyday lives? And maybe getting up early means going to bed a little earlier,
Yeah.
so you can get everything in. So
I know what that's
uh,
like.
so it's definitely an ongoing practice of awareness, care, intentionality. What stands out is definitely the importance of giving ourselves permission to slow down, to check in, to recognize that taking care of our mental health well-being is not a weakness, but a form of strength. It shapes how we show up in our lives, in our relationships, in our communities. So in many ways, prioritizing mental health can be
Mm.
perceived as an act of peace building, relationship building with ourselves, which is really at the core. If we're not taking care of ourselves, how can we expect anyone to take care of others? So when we cultivate self-awareness, compassion, that balance within ourselves, we definitely create the conditions for more understanding, empathy, and connection with others. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And to our
Appreciate it.
listeners, yeah, thank you for joining us, Peacebuilding Initiatives. We hope today's conversation encourages you to take even a small step toward caring for your mental health, and supporting those around you. In doing so, we each contribute to building a more compassionate and connected world. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.